Welcome to the latest edition of the Nine Sports Podcast, Women's Basketball Edition. I am Howard Megdal.
And I'm Jackie Powell.
We are here with a jam-packed show. Emma Baccellieri and Jordan Robinson have written an amazing book, Court Queens. They're going to join us to talk all about it. We're going to talk Sweet 16, and we're not going to miss out on everything that you may have missed from the hidden gems in the 2026 WNBA CBA. And in fact, we're going to start right there, Jackie, with number one at the 9. We're going to put 60 seconds on the clock and get a sense of, all right, what are the number one most important thing that we learned from this CBA agreement? Jackie, here it comes. If you're
I'm ready for the gong.
Yeah, avoid the gong. Avoid the gong at all costs. Here we go.
For the CBA to get done, compromise was unavoidable. For a long time, both sides resisted, but progress only came when the players and the owners finally listened to each other. It reminded me of how ratification of the U.S. Constitution relied on major compromises: the Great Compromise, the Commerce Compromise, and the Electoral College. And that was all to balance competing interests. Similarly, this CBA reflects a balancing act between the league and its players. In both cases, despite deep differences in philosophy at times, both sides ultimately wanted the WNBA to succeed and for a season to be played. And in today's climate, that willingness to invest in women's work and find common ground stands out, even more so during a time when those values often feel absent in broader American life.
Right at the gong, really. I think it left your fingertips before the gong was pressed. So no, I think it counts. I think we've got it. Very nicely done. I love it that you have solved not just the CBA, but America. So it's very much appreciated. America could use you. So this is very helpful as we ponder the months and years ahead. But no, I think you make a fantastic point about the fact that we have learned a great deal about compromise, and we have gotten the opportunity to see where this fits within the broader landscape of women's basketball history. And that's why I am so excited in just a moment to bring you Emma Baccellieri, Jordan Robinson, talking about this amazing book, Court Queens. Here we go. Welcome back. Howard Megdal here. I am joined not only by, of course,
Jackie Powell,
but Emma Baccellieri, Jordan Robinson. You have written a book called Court Queens. I cannot stress enough that you must pick up this book. This is a book that, to be clear, if you need a full sense of a through line of women's basketball history, it's going to give you what you need. And I am an old, and I have been reporting for a long time, and I learned a ton from this as well. So it's not just an intro. It is an advanced masterclass. Congratulations to you both. This is just the book I knew it would be when you told me you were writing it. And I'm going to turn things over to Jackie to get into more of the book specifics.
Yeah, so first of all, both of you, welcome to the Nine Sports Podcast. We are so happy to have you here with us. I think where I want to start is I want to understand, why did both of you want to write this book, and what do you think that you both accomplished with it?
Yeah, either one. I love this question.
I think it really just felt like the perfect time for something like this to exist. That, there are some other really incredible histories about various aspects of the women's game, whether it's the college game, the early days of the pro game, etc. But as we see the fandom growing, as we see engagement going up, it just really seemed like it would be the best time to do something that kind of tied all of that together, that was, had beautiful photographs and was visually engaging. That was the kind of coffee table book that I know as a kid. I was obsessed with sports history, and my dad had several amazing sports coffee table books. and I didn't realize until I was much older that none of those had women in them. It just seemed like it was really the perfect time for something like this to kind of bring that history together and make it fun and feel like a love letter to the game rather than just a history lesson.
And Jordan, for you?
Yeah, I think that was super well said. This is our love letter to women's basketball, and with it being the right time, and even the right time in our careers to be able to, have moments that we remember and that we were there and we were able to cover, but also we're super fans, but there were things that we didn't know. Just like Howard said, we were learning along as we were reporting this book. So it was such a fun adventure to have our first book be about the history of women's basketball. And I hope people love it. I hope people learn a lot. I hope they smile as they look through the photos, because they're so much fun as you flip through all the way to today. But yeah, we hope people can take away that basketball wasn't invented a few years ago. Even if your fandom just came in a few years ago, it was here when basketball was first invented. Women have been hooping a really long time. So that's what we wanted to come across.
Yeah, I love all of that. I mean, as both of you just said, Court Queens is a lot about the stories of women who a lot of us don't know about. And I'm sure the two of you didn't know about a bunch of the women you were writing about. So I guess from each of you, whose story that you didn't know before you wrote this book touched you the most, and why?
I really loved one of the ones that I had in the 1960s chapter, which was Denise Long. And this was a name I had heard before, that I was vaguely aware that a woman had been drafted by the NBA out of high school in the late 60s. But I had only ever heard that tidbit as kind of like a publicity stunt, a joke sort of. I didn't know anything about who that woman was, what she was like as a player, and then what happened to her afterward. And so getting to dig into this story and seeing, she was an incredible high school player in Iowa 6-on-6 who, really achieved remarkable acclaim and renown on a national stage for that time. She's taken by San Francisco, and they actually do start a sort of women's league that is halftime entertainment for the NBA. It's certainly not a pro experience as we would think of it, but it was allowing them to play on something like a pro stage. They weren't really being paid in actual money, but they were paid in other forms. Denise was given a really cool car by the owner of the team. And it was such an interesting story, and so much more seeing, I heard this one line forever of like, oh, like there was a woman drafted, and just kind of as a joke, seeing that it was to generate publicity, but to generate publicity for what the Warriors team owner at the time thought could be a broader platform for women that he thought could be profit generating, and what it meant to that one woman in particular, Denise Long, and what came after. It was just so fascinating, and I had no idea, and really enjoyed getting to write that and look through the photos.
Yeah, that was one of those ones where Emma texted me immediately, was like, do you know this? We have to put this in the book. And anytime something like that happened, we knew we had to put it in the book, because everybody would have that same reaction from it. For me, mine came from my first essay in the first chapter on Ora Washington, learning about not only her story, coming from the South to Philly and playing for the Tribune Girls, which was sponsored by the Black newspaper in town. Just her journey, but also all Black women in those early days. What were their introduction to basketball like? And getting to dig into that and listen to different podcasts and research different things about all the different stories of how Black women got really introduced to the game during that time was so fascinating, because, it just feels so full circle when we saw Unrivaled Philly come through and sell out crowds and set records with attendance. And I'm like, man, Ora Washington would have loved this. Like, she would have been there. She would have been on that floor, and everyone would have been cheering for her. So it was so fun to just dig more into that piece, and I loved what I discovered.
Both of you brought up a really interesting point, which it's just come to my attention now. A lot of research went into this. Can you both paint the picture for me as to sort of what the research looked like? Were you going into libraries? Were you mostly on your computer? I mean, Jordan, you talked about listening to different podcasts. Like, what was this research process like for both of you?
I did have one very fun early trip to the Library of Congress because I live in Washington, D.C. Although I had imagined that I've done work from the Library of Congress before, I've never done serious research. And I was picturing like rifling through stacks and boxes of old photographs. And it's actually like you're searching through databases on the computer. It's the same work I could do searching through their database using my library card at home. But it was nice to do it in the building, and it was very cool to then look through some of those things that I could actually physically go through. So it didn't quite fit my, like National Treasure Library of Congress dreams, but it was still a lot of fun. They have a really remarkable early photo collection that had some actually that ended up in the book, just amazing black and white photos from, pre 1930 of women playing hoops. But yeah, other than that, for me, a lot of newspaper archive searching on my computer. Obviously, we have, calls and interviews with some of these players. And then, watching some old game film that we could find on YouTube. That was always really fun. So a little bit of everything.
Yes, I loved going to my library. I feel like I shouted them out. I think I shouted them out in the acknowledgments. If not, I definitely wanted to from just going there for a place to work. It was so nice. I just fell in love with libraries all over again. But yeah, it was a lot of reading, listening, going to old newspapers were so fun to dig through and to be able to look at retelling of events that were happening so much in real time and how people described it in the 1930s and 1920s. That was a lot of fun to dig through. But yeah, a lot of research. But I tell you, anytime we went down a rabbit hole, we were telling each other because that was the fun part. I love going through rabbit holes and researching just in my free time. So to be able to do it for a book and on such a topic that was so vast. Emma says it all the time. When we first saw that we had to do 250 pages and like 40,000 words, we were like, okay, we've never done this before. That is a lot. And then by the time we were done, we were like, can we have 250 more pages? Can we have 40,000 more words? Because there's so much history. And of course, we couldn't get everything in, but we wanted to have it twice as big as the book is now.
Well, so the time for a sequel then is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I know. If you guys buy these copies, volume 2 may be on the way.
Do it, everybody.
Court Queens Volume 2. It has a nice sound to it.
I like it.
So, Emma, you were obviously talking about the Library of Congress and how that is such a beacon for United States history, right? And so I guess for both of you, and before I hand this over to Howard to change the conversation a little bit off of Court Queens, although I do think everything is interconnected here.
They are.
How do you think the story of women's basketball draws a parallel with women's history in general in this country?
I think the biggest thing for me is just that neither of those histories are linear, right? That you see eras where kind of things really advance really quickly and then they stall out in some sense. You see eras where it feels like more of an interconnected line, and you see eras where it's really clear that this is not one history, that this is very split among racial lines, among sexuality lines, that there are all kinds of identities here under this banner of women's basketball, of women in general. And that can look very, very different for one woman versus another. And I think, yeah, it just was really gratifying, I guess, to see this full arc, that there are times where, I mean, frankly, you're looking from like the 1920s to the 1950s. In a lot of ways, it feels like the game is kind of stalling out. You have the social conservatism that has made it harder for women to play sports at scale in a way that might have seemed shocking in the 1910s and 1920s, when you actually did have sizable barnstorming interest. You had teams getting off the ground. The fact that there would be no real advancement at scale for 30 years after that can seem kind of shocking. And then it really takes off, that you have these periods where it seems like, will this ever move forward? And then it does. I think that kind of does match the overall history of women. And I think it was comforting, I guess, to see that, even at times where it might seem like there's not as much reason for hope, there always is.
Mm-hmm. And in that same realm, I feel like the idea that when women were said, you can't do this, you can't do something, you're not a part of something, they make it their own. They still make themselves a part of it. And I think about from the very beginning, Cinda said, okay, these rules are only for men. This is basketball, but how can I make something very specific to women's basketball? And not just, okay, we're going to adopt your rules. We're going to make our own rules. We're going to make our own league. We're going to carve out a lane specifically for us. And that was really inspiring to see that has happened throughout women's history, but also throughout women's basketball history, really making a lane for themselves when they were ostracized or said that they can't be a part of something. So we always do that. I love us for always getting in the way in the best way possible.
It is a wonderful thing to see. It is nothing new under the sun. And I think those parallels, to your point, getting to research these moments and hear the parallels to the current time in what you're seeing. Can you just, for each of you, take me through whether you think you processed the news of the new collective bargaining agreement with the WNBA and the players because you were able to see it through a framework of the work you had just completed researching and writing this book?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I do think it kind of enriched my understanding in a sense that obviously there's one lens of understanding through having covered the sport and seen the conditions around the league over the last couple of years and seen how much has changed over just the last 2 years to understand how necessary a leap forward like this was, and understand, frankly, in some areas how much more could have possibly been on the table, and understand like what went into the compromises here. But I think to kind of have a chance to zoom out of that and put it in context of the research we just did, yeah, it did make it, I think, more powerful to think of this as not just something that caps off 2 years of growth or the 6 years since the last CBA or the 30 years of the W, but 130 years of women trying so hard to play, doing what they could in whatever context they had. I think it did kind of actually really enrich it and make it feel like a capping achievement of something much larger than even the league itself.
And Jordan, for you?
I think that, we timed this perfectly. And I'm so sorry, Jackie, that you were out there camping, but we were wanting the negotiations actually to go a long time to go perfectly with the launch of our book, because that's how many messages I got of like CBA news, and I just got court queens. What a great day for women's basketball. So this was all marketing ploy. So sorry. No, just
well
kidding.
done. Yeah,
But no, it really put it in perspective for me. And I think, I co-host the Women's Hoop Show with Cheryl Swoops, and I was just thinking about her and how, I talked to her about it. Like, what were you feeling? And she's like, I cried. Like, I cried because of everything that we have gone through. I never would have thought that women's basketball players would be millionaires. Even when we were asking more in our first CBA, $1 million Supermax contract, like, didn't even come to our minds. So I think of it, we got so much in the nitty gritty, and we were in the fight and just like wanting there to be a season. And like Emma said, once you zoom out and realize, whoa, this is a really big deal. Going back to, the early 1900s of Ora Washington, where she still had her job as a housemaid. She couldn't ever quit her job to be able to play basketball. And now we're going to potentially have generational wealth from being a professional basketball player in the United States. Like, that is such a big deal. And so I don't know if I fully processed it. I think that's a really good question, but I'm really excited and I'm so happy and so proud of everything that, they fought for not only themselves, for the future WNBA players as the draft is around the corner, but also for the past players as well. I feel like it was just all encompassing of how far the game has grown.
And I love that some past players are getting back pay as part of this agreement. I think it's a really important nod to the players of today understanding who came before, but it goes in both directions. I was talking to Molly Boland-Kazmer, of course, the great star from the 1970s, who by age 26, at the peak of her abilities, is working as a house painter because she cannot earn a full-time living or even a partial time living playing basketball. And that's how recently we were seeing this being something that was not a viable going concern economically, let alone the moment up until now where we still had WNBA players making 5-figure salaries, a thing that is blessedly now part of the past. But Molly connected with Denise to talk about how excited they both were about this. And so in the same way, the people who helped build to the current moment, there's not an anger, there's not a feeling of having missed out. There is instead a sense of, oh, we were part of something bigger and now we are getting to see where that has gone. So it's just amazing to be able to see in that broader context. I also wonder, and Emma, you're, I know, in Sacramento, and Jordan, I know you are also joining next week in Phoenix. When you guys are at games now, just in general, does it feel different? Are you seeing and hearing echoes? I can tell you for me, when I have written these books, I can't help but see them and hear them, these moments. And I say, this is just like something that I encountered deep in the stacks in the library. Have you guys had moments like that?
I do think it's made me keep a keener eye out for the explicit past connections that, 2 weeks ago at this point, I was at the SEC championship and I saw Jody Conrad, the former Texas coach who led them to their first national championship. And I think I knew her name. I don't think I would have previously recognized her and thought, oh, I know exactly how important that 1986 season was, as an undefeated season coming when the NCAA was still fairly new to sponsoring women's sports, and seeing what that did to have a major program like this that had really committed to a robust women's athletics department. It did kind of make me appreciate that much more. Also, like, feel motivated to go up and introduce myself, and then also to contextualize it with what I was seeing with Texas winning that SEC championship and what it's trying to set up here, and what Vic Schaefer has done with his life and his career. It does, I think, give a deeper appreciation for those connections and make me want to look for them more keenly.
Mm-hmm. Isn't she the cutest? Jody Conrad is like the sweetest woman. She's
Jody.
so adorable. I know at one point she was a very hard-nosed coach, but right now she just looks like the sweetest woman.
She is. Yeah.
I think about a lot of things differently. One, I think about what would be starting volume 2. Like, I'm like, this, I know we're going to get into it, but this Virginia team, I'm like, okay, this would be an essay. What photos would we use? Like, Kymora Johnson, how could we put that in there? And then I think the photos part is still very much with me. Like, as we were going through these photos so much on just looking at what, facial expressions we wanted to use. And our photo researcher, Carolyn Davis, was so good at like, okay, we have a cheering one on this page. Now we need to show like other emotions. So as we're scrolling through social media, photos are always in our faces. And I'm like, okay, would we use this one? maybe not this one. You know, this is probably a premium photo because we had to pay for every single photo that went into this book. So now I'm like, okay, this would be too premium. So what's another version of this? There's so many photographers at games now. That's also something I just look out for. When we were researching, there was sometimes only one photographer going to these games, and that's what made it the photos extra special, but also very rare to find. So just how much we have a plethora of options of photos now. That was not the case back in the day. And I'm already thinking about like, which ones would we use for these moments and how would we capture that throughout history?
Yes, yes to everything you both said. I'm going to add this, and we'll put them in the show notes. Rob Knox wrote about Johnson 2 years ago, so we have been all over this story, and that'll be in the show notes. And of course, the great Jessica Luther from Burn It All Down wrote an amazing piece about the 40-year anniversary of Jody's team. And yes, Jody is the sweetest. I had the privilege of getting to know her over the last few years, and she is not shy about sharing her history, and it's something that's really necessary. I'm so grateful to you both for preserving this. I will tell you that I have it here right now, but also when it's not here for the podcast, it is on my coffee table. It is a conversation piece. I love it so much. So, all right, before we get to this, I want to make sure we are promoting what you both are doing, because you both do so many different things. And then I'd love for you to join us for Court Vision. It's normally something Jackie and I do, but we're going to turn it into the four of us with hot takes. So, Emma, first, what can we promote? What's the easiest way for people to read your work at SI? Anything else that you're doing right now?
Yeah, I am on Sports Illustrated's website. I'm on Twitter, BlueSky, now Threads, all of the platforms that we have to be on now under my name, just sharing all of that everywhere. And Court Queens you can get anywhere you get books, your independent bookstore, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, etc.
Very good. Jordan, I know you have the show. I know you were doing studio work with y'all. I don't know how you keep track. I have trouble keeping track of it from afar. You're actually doing it.
I have trouble as well. That's why I'm not going to give you guys homework of all the places to go and hunt for a video of me talking about basketball. But subscribe to the Women's Hoop Show. That's where I mostly am, or on social media, on Instagram at Jordan Liggins, on TikTok at Hey Jordan Robinson. And yes, buy the book anywhere you get books.
And I'll smash the RT button every time. It's an automatic, it's blind RT for you guys. So
we'll have all of these links in the show notes, so everyone can find both of their incredible work. It's funny, the two of you talking about the photos, I kept thinking, how much did they focus on the very interesting hairstyles that women's basketball players had during the history?
Jackie, do you not know me at all? That was my whole thing. Of course, we're talking about hair throughout this book.
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, cannot recommend it highly enough. We're going to get to Court Vision here. But again, just like two of the very best and two of the best humans. So thank you both for being part of everything that you're doing here. We're going to talk Court Vision, and it's going to be, the takes are going to get, I'm just want people to be warned, like a little hot. Like this is going to be, you just need to be prepared. So we're going to go one by one. And Emma, I'm going to start with you. It's going to be the most unexpected thing you think we'll see out of this weekend, and the thing you are most anticipating out of this weekend. And we'll each take a turn.
Okay, I'm prepared to come in a little bit hot. I think my most unexpected one, I do think UVA can beat TCU. I think we've seen this TCU team has been kind of shaky through the tournament so far. I think in order for this to work, you really need not just Olivia Miles at her best, but that connection with Marta Suarez and Clara Silva. And I'm not sure we've seen that, especially against a UVA team with a player who is as dynamic as Kymora Johnson. I am picking UVA. I really think they can do it. Yeah, I think we're going to get a 10 seed. Thank you. And the Elite Eight. I think they can do it.
That's big, and we can put to bed the idea, upsets can't happen in the women's tournament, which is a whole lot of nonsense. That would be something. Yep. All right. So that's your most surprising end thing you're most looking forward to. It's okay to combine them. I
No,
accept
well, I was
that.
gonna
That would
do.
be okay.
I would be looking forward to it, but I was gonna do for most looking forward to. I think Duke LSU is going to be the best matchup here. Just that stylistic clash of Kara Lawson's defense and the offense they have at LSU. That's like the ultimate styles make fights for me. I'm not sure who I'm picking, but I'm most excited for that matchup.
That's very interesting. That is very interesting. Jordan, what about you? And it can be combined or it can be 1-1. You tell me.
Well, Emma is in my hometown of Sacramento, and my brother said that he was going to go to the games, and he was like, "Which day should I go?" And
Mm.
when I saw that he's going to get South Carolina, Oklahoma, and TCU, Virginia in the same day, I texted him immediately. I was like, "You're going Saturday." And I gave him a little rundown of why, and he got really excited. So now he knows all the backstory. So I'm so jealous that you guys are in Sacramento and I am not. But that was going to be mine too. I think Virginia can do this. I am wearing orange for Court Queen's press, but also maybe for Virginia. I'm like so rooting for the underdog now. I love Olivia Miles. We know that she is a triple double machine. She is going to go into the WNBA draft. She's going to have an incredible WNBA career. But come on, we don't get this. We don't get these Cinderella stories, these double-digit seeds from the first four, and you have nothing to lose. Nobody expected you to be here. You are playing with house money, and that freedom, I think, really propels teams forward. There is a lot more pressure on TCU. You don't want to be the team that allows another team to make history. So I think they're going to play free. I think they're going to play fun. And I think they could get them. And I'm rooting for it because of how fun it would be to cover that type of story.
It would be. It
would be so fun. So fun. And then the thing that I'm most looking forward to, I would go South Carolina, Oklahoma for this rematch, revenge type of storyline. You know, Oklahoma being the only team that beat them in the SEC in overtime. A freshman, Aaliyah Chavez, goes off in overtime to take down the Goliath of South Carolina. Can they do it again? They have confidence because they've already beat them before, but South Carolina is mad. And how is all of that going to mesh on the court? It might be an ugly game. I'm also prepared for that. Like, it might be not this pretty crisp game that we want, but it's going to be a fight to the finish. And so I'm excited for that one.
These are very hot takes. I did a little research on it. It turns out, I don't know if you guys know this, what state Olivia Miles is from. Jackie, do you know?
New Jersey.
Thank you very much. And so, given that she's from New Jersey, I can't quite.
You can't, yeah.
I can't pull the lever on. TCU is going to fall in this one. I do think it's going to be a great game. Here's what I'm going to say. This is both what I'm most looking forward to and potentially the most surprising. We talked about this prior to the start of the tournament. I thought if Minnesota was playing at the peak of their abilities and Mara Braun was hitting her perimeter shots, that they had a chance to not just make the Sweet 16, but give UCLA its toughest matchup. I think UCLA, Minnesota is going to be a much better game than people are talking about. I mean, you want to talk about a doubleheader with that and Duke LSU in the same bracket on the same day. I think it's going to be amazing. But I think Minnesota has a chance to shock the world. And let me tell you the hidden additional reason why they're going to. It's what I'm most looking forward to. I wrote a book a few years ago called Rare Gems about multiple generations of women's basketball pioneers in Minnesota. That included and was at the top was Peps Newman and what she had managed to do, creating and building women's basketball culture in that state, resurrected high school girls varsity basketball from nothing because it had been banned in Minnesota for decades, went ahead and created a barnstorming team that existed for 26 years. She is now known more informally as the Blanket Lady. When she ran with her blanket, Minnesota proceeded to go on a 30-9 run in order to win. She is the secret weapon, even beyond Amaya Battle and her amazing shot that sent them to the Sweet 16. Peps and Vicky Nelson, her teammate from that team, are in Sacramento as we speak. They are on hand for the game. So I am excited to see Minnesota UCLA. I am especially excited to see the blanket lady running in Pacific time zone for the very first time. So that is my both prediction and most excited thing. Jackie, why don't you take us home?
Oh my gosh, man. I hope that the camera catches Peps running around.
Oh,
Oh,
they
yeah.
better. They better.
I mean, ESPN, I hope y'all are ready to spotlight the blanket lady, or
Mhm.
Peps rather. Well, I think I should focus on Sacramento 4 because I don't think we've spoken about them. So I happen to believe that Michigan is going to be advancing to the Final Four. I believe they are going to beat Texas. And the reason for that is I just think Michigan has much more firepower that can create offense, even when things get messy, because we know that Texas is going to muck everything up. That's what they do. And I also think that Brooke Daniels is going to give Rory Harmon such a difficult time at the point of attack. Like, get ready to hear people talking about Brooke Daniels. Howard and I saw her back in Newark on Martin Luther King Day, and we were both really impressed by how she was the absolute glue of this group, and she very much so fires up their aggression defensively. In addition, obviously, to Silas Swords and Olivia Olson, who both are quite good defensively. I mean, that whole team is very good defensively. So that is, and Howard, I'm missing something else. The thing I'm most looking forward to, or
Yes. Yeah, which it can also be that. And I second your Michigan point, by the way. Kim Barnes-Arico could not stop raving about Brooke Daniels.
yeah, and you just also take a look at what Michigan did in those first two rounds. I mean, it just, there was no doubt about it. They sort of came with a mission and a purpose. I think what I'm most looking forward to might be if South Carolina is going to face off against Oklahoma, right? So South Carolina lost to them during the regular season. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the Gamecocks bounce back from that.
Going to be really interesting. I totally agree. And we, of course, will be back with you next week. I think there will be one or two things in women's basketball for us to tackle.
Oh my God.
Maybe.
So folks, let's think. So next week we have the Final Four. We have the WNBA double expansion draft. This is all happening on the same day. So there's going to be a lot for us to take you through next week.
Thoughts and prayers to us all.
But anyway, this is all for us today. We want to give a special thank you and shout out to both Emma and Jordan. Please go buy their book, Court Queens. It's a really important book. And as they both said, it's really important for right now. But that's all for us. I'm Jackie Powell.
And I'm Howard Megdal.
And we'll see you next week.